Hey y'all, it's me again. I'm going to continue reading from my book, The 1900s. My book, The Secret Lives of the First Ladies. Sorry, I guess I really want to get on to the 1900 series again. Anyways, let's continue. Better than a security blanket. One of Ellen Axton's favorite pastimes while growing up in Georgia was shooting. Apparently, she never gave up the fondness for firearms. Years later, as an adult, she began to keep a revolver under her pillow at night while she slept. By the time she met Woodrow Wilson, Ellen was an avowed free spirit who believed in the independence of women, who leaned toward a certain skepticism about marriage. Though utterly taken by the ardent Wilson and happy at her engagement to him, she was a little reluctant to kiss her single day's goodbye. While studying art in New York City, Ellen was delighted to discover how perfectly normal it seemed for a woman to go out on the town unescorted. A concept that had yet to make it to her southern home. To the enterprising men of Gotham, Ellen seemed eminently available. A notion she only fostered by wearing Woodrow's engagement ring on her forefinger. One of those men was Arthur Goodrich, an intelligent New England lad who accompanied Ellen to museums, the theater, and all the other places that made New York City so tantalizing. Unfortunately, he was soon tantalized by Ellen, who never bothered mentioning that she was already engaged. Interestingly, she mentioned Goodrich again and again in her correspondence to Woodrow, who finally put his foot down and told her to stop leading the guy on. So Ellen did. And after a few awkward confrontations, the whole matter was finally put to rest. Peccadillo. Woodrow Wilson had a legendary libido. Like me, I think I have a legendary libido. My boyfriend can only last 5 minutes or less in bed. Well, I can last half an hour or more with many rounds. Well, my boyfriend can only last like 1-2 rounds at most. My thing can last like double that. My thing can last like, but my rounds are like double that or something like that. I don't know, I never really had good lovers or anything. So, I really have no freaking clue. But yeah. I have a raging libido. My boyfriend, bling, he's not tiny or anything. I don't know. It's like once in a blue moon where he can last as long as I can. I'm like, I wish he would last longer, but... And I wish I could break up with him, but I can't because he won't let me. So I'm stuck. I mean, like, I do love him. It just sometimes comes and goes, you know? Sometimes I want to break up with him, sometimes I don't. I don't know. Anyways, let's continue. Though his critics, particularly Republicans, dismissed him as a prim and proper bookworm, he had a passionate side that found expression in seeing the company of pretty, admiring women. He was also quite frank in his correspondence with Ellen about sex and his explosive anticipation of it. But in at least one instance, Wilson's ardor ended up exploding in a very different way. His close friendship with Bermuda socialite Mary Peck in the years leading up to 1910 became the subject of scandalous rumors. Historians remain divided over whether Woodrow and Mrs. Peck acted on their obvious attraction, but Wilson himself later admitted that his attention to Mary had been a passage of folly and gross impertinence. As for Ellen, she claimed that the Peck to-do had been the only time in their marriage when Woodrow made her unhappy, and though she never admitted to any knowledge of sexual indiscretions between the two, she is known to have burned some correspondence from the period to avoid it being used by future scandalmongers. Ah. Sorry, there was a pill in there. I don't know if it was my melatonin or what. Anyway, let's continue. Chapter 24. Edith Bowling Wilson. October 15th, 1872 to December 28th, 1961. Married December 18th, 1915. Presidential husband, Woodrow Wilson. Children, none. First Lady, 1915 and 1921. Astrological sign, Libra. Religion, Episcopalian. So I'm not thinking of the country now, I am thinking of my husband. In 1912, Edith Bowling Galt was so politically clueless that she was unaware of the names of the candidates vying for president. It wasn't long, however, before she learned a great deal about politics and became the most powerful woman in the country. Another thing about the girl's Virginia upbringing was auspicious. Edith found herself the seventh in a line of 11 children and has likely to get a good education. She was a large bedroom to herself, something what she could in dribs and drabs, and penned for something greater. So at 19, she moved to Washington, where she was to meet the man who bought her a ticket out of boredom and poverty. His name was Norman Galt, and he fell under Edith's spell almost immediately. The magic wasn't exactly working for her, however, and she felt strained and suffered any feelings about Norman that went beyond good friendship. Nevertheless, a marriage of convenience was better than no marriage at all, at least as far as Edith was concerned, and she consented to marry Norman after a 4-year courtship. Convenient the marriage definitely was, for Norman soon became the sole owner of his family's Washington jewelry store, affording Edith the sort of lifestyle she always dreamt of. Tragedy struck when their only child died just days after a difficult birth that left Edith unable to bear children for the rest of her life. But aside from this, life as Mrs. Galt was a long party. Dazzling jewelry, the latest fashions, trips to Europe. Edith Wilson brought a flock of sheep onto the White House onto the White House lawn, and auctioned off their wool on behalf of the Red Cross. Ooh, nice. Her sugar daddy gave up the ghost in 1908, but now all the candy belonged to Edith, and she proved herself a capable businesswoman by running the jewelry store at least as well as her late husband had. When management issues got sticky, she sold the jewelry shop to its employees and resumed her career as a full-time woman of leisure. Though liberated by wealth, Edith maintained in the following years a retired widow of a tradesman, a life that, for all its theater-going and socializing, put in a remarkably separate aristocracy, I think, and a separate upper class from the political one that governed in Washington. It was a distinction that suited her just fine, for it seemed utterly devoid of causes, party low to uneasy as a claptrap that made those public service types such an inferior bore. But fate intervened to change all that. Edith's good friend Alice Gertrude Gordon had fallen in love with none other than Admiral Cary Grayson, the naval doctor who now served as President Wilson's aide. Through Grayson, Edith got to know and befriend Helen Bones, who'd been acting as surrogate White House hostess since the tragic death of First Lady Ellen Wilson in 1914. In March of 1915, while visiting with Miss Bones for tea in the White House, of all places, Edith stepped out of the mansion's elevator and then ran into the President of the United States. Wilson agreed to join their little tea party and proceeded to hit it off with Mrs. Galt. Indeed, the President laughed on several occasions, something that nobody had seen him do since the horror of Ellen's death. the chief executive seemed to come alive again, which was a good thing as far as his closest intimates were concerned. Woodrow had been moping around the White House like a wet noodle on barbiturates since Ellen's funeral. Indeed, there were some who thought his very life depended on finding romance. Notoriously sexual Woodrow Wilson without a female preoccupation was like a car running on fumes. Now, seemingly overnight, he had a new obsession. And he had acted quickly, very quickly. He proposed to Edith within 2 months, for crying out loud. Edith tried to compensate for his outrageous lack of conscience by putting him off, the sort of tactic that only made a dog like Wilson pant more or less sheepishly. Oh my god. Her hesitations were nothing if not solidly grounded. Sure, she was taken by this brilliant, powerful, eloquent Randy man, but she barely knew the guy, a fact she insisted on reminding him of. Besides, how would it look for the President of the United States to remarry so quickly after his beloved wife's death? Ellen's tombstone had yet to be erected. She ended up giving in anyways, of course, and they agreed to a secret engagement in June. Secret perhaps, but an open secret. Especially those who spent a lot of time with Wilson, like his advisors. The President Dodgers may have been giddy at the color in his cheeks and the skip in his step, but his political circles started seeing red flags all over the place. And engagements did soon spell political disaster. Knowing Woodrow's runaway carnal proclivities and the impossibility of derailing them, the cabinet, in league with prominent Democrats, had to scheme to break up the happy couple so as to avoid scandalizing the public before the 1916 election. The President was informed that his old flame, Mrs. Pegg, had been making waves, threatening to publish incriminating correspondence as the President went ahead with his engagement to Edith. It was a reprehensible falsehood, but Wilson bought it. Assured and terrified, he exposed the whole Pegg thing to his beloved and offered to cancel the engagement. The plan backfired. Not only did Edith forgive her beloved and see through the ruse, she decided to move up the formal announcement of their engagement, much to Wilson's delight. In October 1915, the American public was notified of his President's betrothal to Mrs. Galt. The couple sealed the deal the following December. There were plenty of people who made the political's nightmare come true, ranting about the impropriety of the President's swift remarriage, but the first couple didn't seem to notice. Hopelessly in love with each other, they commenced with a White House relationship that was as close as any ever got. Edith did everything with her husband. Ate, slept, motored about in the executive car, read, played golf, you name it. They were like honeymooners whose honeymoon never ended. Along the way, Edith received a top-notch, extensive education in statesmanship and the hurly-burly of politics. The President shared all of his responsibilities with her, from domestic litigation to dispatches from foreign dignitaries. Edith began acting upon her education, advising Woodrow on virtually every document that crossed his desk. She spoke out against women's suffragists who pestered her husband everywhere he went, dismissing it as disgusting. And Woodrow, happy to have a bedmate once again, a voluptuous and intelligent one with whom he could trust burdens and dreams, just encouraged her. Before long, she was actually decoding State Department messages for him from nations abroad in the Great War. A war that in April of 1917 finally snared the United States. Edith responded to World War I with a patriot's heart. She clamped down on the family finances, oversaw a strict cutback in White House domestic expenditures, and even bought sheep for the Manson's lawn, whose wool was auctioned on behalf of the Red Cross. She also made sure her husband, still a workaholic, got enough rest and relaxation. A billiard table was installed for his diversion. But the war was nothing for her, and Woodrow could pay the fight that would come afterward. In December of 1918, Mr. and Mrs. Wilson traveled to what remained of Europe to take part in the Versailles peace negotiations. The President was making a personal appearance to present his idea for a League of Nations, an organization for international cooperation that was designed to avoid the catastrophe that the world had just experienced. It was a quintessential Wilson vision, and Europe ate it up. His own country, however, started choking on it. To help America, and in particular a hostile Senate, washed it down. The president and his wife embarked upon an insanely ambitious tour of the country, making speeches at every stop in support of the treaty. Predictably, Wilson insisted on playing the tireless workaholic, committed to make his dream come true at any cost. That cost to Edith Lamont was his health, which had always been an issue and that now became acute. He suffered a stroke. Then, after cutting the whistle-stop tour short and racing back to the White House, he suffered another. What happened next remains one of the most extraordinary developments in American history. While her husband convalesced in the old Lincoln bed, Edith Wilson forbade anyone from seeing him. Not even Vice President Thomas Marshall was admitted. Nobody involved in the business of government was allowed to see the president's real condition or to discuss vital matters with him. For all they knew, he was already dead. Edith, by sheer force of will, guarded his bedroom door like Cerberus and made herself the sole conduit between her ill husband and the officials who reported to him. She had always been a woman with a single cause, her husband, and she now threw herself into that cause with astonishing determination, relying on the crash course in politics that he had given her to decide for herself what was important for him and to see and what was not. As the League Treaty got stuck in the Senate, cabinet members and others in Congress appealed to Edith to get her husband to compromise on some of the treaty's issues in order to get it passed. But Wilson retained enough vigor to reject that idea outright, and Edith supported him. With half of Washington decrying the First Lady's stewardship as petticoat government and the Regency, and the President unable to act personally on behalf of his beloved League idea, the treaty was ultimately killed in the Senate. For the Wilsons, it was a disaster. Woodrow made a steady recovery. He somehow started to flirt with the notion of a third term, an idea even Edith couldn't take seriously. The situation helped Republican Warren Harding capture the 1920 election. The couple stayed on in Washington, and Edith got to enjoy her husband's company for a few more years. He died on February 3rd, 1924. Widowed for the second time, Edith went on to publish an autobiography in 1939. Reigned as a very popular queen mother during Franklin Roosevelt's administration, and came close to getting married again. The Bernard Bards, an old crony of Wilson's, but most of her remaining years were dedicated to helping others honor Woodrow's memory. The professor never stopped being her great cause. Please comment, rate, and subscribe down below. And if you're on YouTube, please ring that bell notification so that you can get notified about when I upload. Sorry for yawning, I'm just so tired. I just did not sleep well, and I haven't been sleeping well. I think it's because I'm just so worried about money. I still haven't found a job, and I've been out of a job for like 2, almost 3 years now. So yeah, it's hard getting a job in this economy right now. I really need to get more money because my SSI is not cutting it for me and my boyfriend. It would cut for me if it was just me. But I also have to help my boyfriend out because his job barely makes any money whenever he's working. So, yeah, and I think my friend is about to visit soon. So that's another thing why I'm so tired. So anyways, yeah. And please ring that bell notification so that you can know when I upload. And if you're on TikTok, I need more followers than I do likes. I already have enough likes. I mean, I like it when you like my videos and whatnot. Don't get me wrong, but yeah. Once I get to like 100 subscribers on YouTube and 100 followers on TikTok, I'll do something special for you guys, okay? I'm not gonna tell you because it's gonna be a surprise, but let's get to 100 so that you can see that surprise, okay? Bye.